Hi, Emily.
Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good.
Nice to meet you virtually.
I know to virtually meet you too.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
My
I can
Wi-Fi.
hear you
Okay.
just. Can you hear and see me okay as well?
Okay. Yes, I can hear and
Oh,
see you. Okay. Sounds
okay.
good. Are you all set? Oh, wait, can you see my entire face? Let's go like this. Yeah, I'll
I'm
just go
good.
like this.
Yeah, that works.
Sorry, now. um, All right, so hello everyone. My name is Ibukun and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the social media outreach coordinator at Whitman-Walker. And I'm here with Emily. And Emily, you can introduce yourself if you would like.
Yeah, Emily Gerlach. I use she, her pronouns as well. I've been at Whitman-Walker for coming on 4 years now. Yeah, it's always nice to get to see new faces and have these fun chats. So thanks
Yes.
for.
Well, of course. Thank you for coming on today. So today we're basically, the holidays are coming up. And I feel like it's really important for us to have conversations about, different people have like different relationships with food and, you know, especially a holiday like Thanksgiving that is so centered around eating and like food. I wanted us to, come together today to talk about just things that might like traditions that might be exciting for some people, but also might be a cause of anxiety for some other people, especially if they're worried about their health or just like general dieting questions. So that's why we brought Emily here today, and like she said, she's a registered dietitian at Whitman-Walker Health. So she's going to talk to us about food over the holiday season. And I do want to say that over our live, you can leave some questions down below, and we can answer them in real time. So if anyone ever has any questions, do not hesitate to leave them in the comment section and we will try to answer them. So before we get, or like for us to get started, I'm going to start with a few questions for Emily. So my first question for you is, what does a registered dietitian do? And what exactly does your role entail at Whitman-Walker Health Center?
Yeah, yeah. So a registered dietitian is essentially a nutrition expert. So dietitians are able to provide medical nutrition therapy, which is basically nutrition counseling and recommendations based on an individual's medical diagnoses, as well as their, personal needs and goals, things like that. Dietitians are we have special like licensure, credentialing, that sort of thing, education, of course. So my role at Whitman-Walker is to provide nutrition counseling and education to our patients for a variety of different disease states, conditions, including but not limited to HIV and side effect management, diabetes, disordered eating, weight management, digestive issues, heart disease, kidney disease, things like that, as well as connect patients with food access resources as well, and or like oral nutrition supplements. Also, every year I lead diabetes self-management education, which is an ADA, American Diabetes Association, accredited program that we offer at Whitman-Walker. And so that's every year, that's a group style class, as well as I co-run a group called Eat and Engage with one of our awesome therapists here. So that's for people experiencing disordered eating, and
Okay.
just help a healthier relationship with food and kind of builds a skill set to deal with issues related to food and eating.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot of things that you do, but they are all really very important things. And I'm glad that you're able to, be a resource for people who would like to, have like a healthier relationship with food or who just would like to discuss, just how to, um, you know, take care of their bodies through nutrition. So the
Yeah.
next question I have for you is, so what exactly does it mean to eat healthy, especially if we're talking about like the context of traditional holiday foods? So like, the turkey, the pie, the greens, like what does it mean to eat healthy? And then also how can our families like meet that standard over the holidays? Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it can be tricky to think about eating healthfully during the holidays. And like you mentioned earlier, that can bring up a lot of anxieties and feelings and things like that. So I would say, honestly, the biggest thing is try not to overthink or stress about it. We love these holiday foods. It's okay to enjoy them. Balance is certainly important. But I think, kind of planning ahead and thinking ahead about what you're going to do to be able to enjoy the holiday foods that you love. So for example, like when attending holiday events, I would suggest bringing, maybe offer to bring a healthier like dish, whether that's a veggie heavy dish or, something like that. Just so that there's some balance present at those events so you can still enjoy those sweets or,
Yeah.
heartier dishes, foods are those special holiday foods that you want to enjoy, but then at least you have another option to kind of balance out that plate a little bit. So, again, you've got those options. You can enjoy the stuff you like, but you've got those healthier options as well. I would say communicate with your family members too.
Okay.
Tell them what your needs are, and people are usually willing to work with that. Or if you're hosting, it can also be helpful to like even assign categories. So, say you do the appetizer, you do the side dish, and have vegetables be their own categories. Have a couple
Oh
people bring
yeah.
different vegetable dishes because that way, there's still, again, all those good holiday fun foods, but then still some veggie heavy options as well. Once you actually arrive at a gathering, I would say start with, small like little tasters of the things you're curious about.
Hmm.
You might even just a little taste is enough for you of that particular food, maybe not. And in that case, which foods to kind of prioritize on your plate and kind of figure out how to structure your plate while still being able to taste all those things that you like. So start by loading up your plate with veggies to occupy a lot of that space, and then moderate the portions of those other foods that you want to eat. When it comes to alcohol, I would say try the age-old trick of alternating, between your beverage of choice and water or seltzer water or something like that.
Okay.
Try using like lower sugar calorie mixers such as sparkling water, which is like a splash of unsweetened fruit juice, and then garnish with, fresh fruits, cranberries, orange slices, and herbs such as rosemary, to kind of just add a little color and have a little bit of
Yeah.
fun with your drink. And then lastly, I know this can be tough, especially if we're doing a lot of cooking and preparing for parties and things like that, but try not to go into a holiday meal or party super, super hungry. You're more
Mm.
likely to eat if you're really, really hungry. So don't skip meals. Rather, make sure that throughout that day, you are still eating balanced meals leading up to that party, just so that you're not feeling famished when you arrive, and
Yeah.
which can to overeating and maybe feeling a little bit uncomfortable physically.
Yeah. Those are really good pieces of advice. And I really like the idea of, like if you are like the one hosting your holiday party, like assigning literally someone to vegetables or a few people to
Yeah.
vegetables, just to ensure that it's like at least the vegetables are going to be there or like healthier options are going to be there because I can definitely see that, especially if it's talking about like my family, like if I don't assign someone, we probably wouldn't have like a lot of healthier options. So I definitely love that idea and I'm going to tell my mom
I
to do
think
that.
they're not oftentimes vegetables are not the thing that you think about when you think about Thanksgiving, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
probably there's somebody else at that gathering that also would love to have, a vegetable or has some sort of, disease state that they need to be conscientious of in terms of food choices. So I think you're probably not the only one that wants,
Yeah.
veggies there at,
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
buffet table.
My next question for you is where does exercise fit into the picture? So basically, how can I exercise when it's cold outside, I'm full of stuffing, and I'm with my family and I just want to be cozy? What
Yeah.
do you
Make it fun. I would say, round up a few family members, bundle up, go for, a morning walk, before you start food prep or whatever your normal holiday routines are. If no one's up to join, I usually just use it as a time to, like download a good podcast I'm interested in or listen to, some new music. We got, not just to name drop, I mean, we've got some Adele and Taylor Swift new
say?
things
I'm thinking,
that have come out recently. So,
yeah,
take an opportunity to listen to to, joyful music or whatever.
Yeah.
Another idea, if you're, if it is really cold or the weather doesn't really agree, clear up some space in, a living room and do a little group yoga or dance video or something like that.
Mhm.
We've done that in the past with my family if the weather is not cooperative. Once my sister just like led a yoga class for my family, and none of us are experienced in that, but it was a fun thing to just do to move our
Yeah.
bodies, stretch out a bit. Um, and again, with the movement thing, you're probably not the only one that would like to do a little bit of movement. So, I bet there's somebody there that would like to do that as well. Some families also do, or groups also do activities on Thanksgiving, like touch football, I know is a common one, or like the turkey trot, those kinds of
Mhm.
runs. So even if you don't want to do something on that scale, doing something as like starting a little tradition that involves movement could be kind of a fun thing to do
Yeah.
with your family groups. Yeah.
Like a morning walk on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving Day. That would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah. Thank
Especially
you.
the lights outside are so beautiful now too.
Yeah.
It's peaceful to, get out there a
Yeah.
bit.
Especially before it gets dark at like 5.
I I
So
know.
yeah, that was helpful. So I'm just curious, what are the greatest challenges you've heard from your clients about around nutrition during the holidays? What are some challenges you hear?
I think the biggest, well, one of the biggest anxieties I hear about before the holidays is just like the fear of overeating. Um, I think if you go into the holidays with, restrictions, you might be more likely to, give up once you see all those tempting foods and smell all those holiday food smells. So my advice would be just don't go in with that all or nothing mentality. It's okay to enjoy
Mhm.
the foods you holidays. So allow yourself that flexibility and honor your body's, hunger as well as fullness. So, try not to eat too quickly. When you're full, try to stop eating. It's likely there will be leftovers, so you can always go back and have more later too.
Mhm.
Really try not to skip meals. I think that really only leads to feeling extremely hungry and increases the likelihood of, overeating and feeling then overly full and uncomfortable afterwards. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges. The other one being around the need to follow therapeutic diet. So if somebody is, diabetic or has heart disease or whatever the case might be, and they need to follow a specific diet, there can be some stress regarding that. And for that, I would say plan ahead.
Okay.
Plan ahead that you'll prepare and how you'll structure your plate once you get to an event. So, for Thanksgiving, let's say, if there are certain, if you love stuffing or you love mashed potatoes or, these side dishes you love, figure out how you can structure them on your plate to still be able to have that balanced plate structure. So kind of trying to still get half of your plate vegetables and fruit, about a quarter your whole grain or your starchy vegetable, and about a quarter your protein food. But again, don't stress if it's not perfect. It doesn't always have to be, but kind of, I think just thinking ahead can take away some of the stress of that, and then have options that make it easier for you to adhere to those diets. So for example, if you have high blood pressure, be the one that makes a couple low sodium side dishes, or communicate again with friends, family, to maybe try not to add salt to the or as much salt to the dishes, and then instead put a salt shaker out on the table and people can add more salt to taste. So yeah, communicating with family members or friends or whoever you're sharing the meals with, and then doing a little bit of planning ahead, I think can take away some of the stressors that people face going holidays.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So how do you anticipate nutrition challenges changing because of COVID-19? So like what advice could you give to people? I mean, is this our second pandemic Thanksgiving? Okay, this is our second pandemic
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. So based off of last year's Thanksgiving, how do you anticipate that, like, maybe showing up again this year?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest challenge I would anticipate people facing is just figuring out how to prepare food for a smaller group
Yeah.
and then figure out how to manage leftovers. I think having so much food, tons of leftovers, could lead to overeating and increased food waste. So again, plan ahead, figure
Okay.
out what you really love and what you want, and skip the stuff, even if they're like the traditional classics, whatever. Skip what you don't want. If you're not gonna enjoy eating it after that first day, it not be worth it to do. It can be it's possible to make, smaller quantities of some things, particularly if you're making stuff from scratch versus buying store-bought options, which are usually structured around larger groups. Um, so, buying a few potatoes and making a smaller batch of mashed potatoes, that's kind of an easy one versus having to get a huge batch and figure out what to do with all of it. Or buy, like for the turkey, for example, buy certain parts that you like instead of feeling buy an entire turkey. If you just like the breast, just get some turkey breasts, or the wings or whatever part you like. Get that and don't worry about it being, the traditional way of doing things. As for desserts, I would say, honestly, like if there's one or two that you want and it's kind of hard to maybe make a little tiny pie, make the whole thing and freeze it. What I'll do is cut it before you freeze it, and then like pop the individual slices in the freezer, and that's like a super easy dessert if you have a sweet tooth a couple weeks down the line,
Yeah.
and doesn't make you feel like you have to finish that entire pie in like 3 or 4 days before it goes bad. So freeze stuff. Don't feel like you have to finish everything. Obviously, we want to reduce food waste, but try to plan ahead. It might not be perfect, and that's okay. I also imagine people will maybe feeling a bit lonely during the holiday season, these last 2 holiday seasons when it's not as easy to travel and see people. So I would say try to like maybe plan a little Zoom gathering with friends or family, or look into, games you might be able to play virtually with people. I think just even a little bit of that connection can help alleviate some of that loneliness.
Yeah.
And then I also try to plan some activities that aren't food related. I think, there's less to do because of COVID. People feel less comfortable going out and about, and that's fair and understandable, of course. But trying to think of things you can do in the home that are not centered around food could be a good idea. So again, starting new traditions that maybe involve movement or games or whatever the case might be, to just take some of the focus off of the food a bit.
Yeah, that was really great advice, Emily. So the last question I have for you, just wanted to end off on something light. What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish? Um,
Ooh.
yes.
I I don't know if it's my favorite, but the things that I get the most excited about are just
Mhm.
like the things that I rarely think to make outside of this window of holiday season. So like stuffing, for example. I just don't think about it throughout the rest of the year. And so that's one that I get really excited about. Also, I love cranberry sauce. And then my family makes this green bean recipe they're like a little sweet, super vinegary with like a ton of caramelized onions. And so that one's just like a super comforting, you know,
That sounds good.
take. I know,
Yeah.
I really all of it, but those are probably the ones that I'm the most excited about. Again, just because they're like not things that I really think about outside of the holiday season.
Well, they
Yeah.
sound really
What about
good. What did you say?
what about yours? What's your favorite?
So I'm Nigerian, so like we usually have Nigerian food at Thanksgiving. So I would say that there's this like spinach dish that my mom makes. It's called efforiro, and it's basically just like spinach and vegetables and like different proteins in it, and like with spices, and you can eat it with like rice, or you can eat it with like some other starches and stuff. But I
Yeah.
like it because it's very comforting, and I personally don't know how to make it myself really good. I mean, I can make it, but it's just not as good as my mom's. So I'm excited to just like taste hers again.
Yeah.
Make it like, when you like try to like recreate like a recipe and it just doesn't taste the same. Like it doesn't taste bad. It just doesn't taste the same. So I'm always like looking forward to just like family gatherings because I know she's gonna make some of that, and it's just always, I think, yeah, that's the perfect word. It's just like comforting. It's like,
Yeah.
that's it I'm looking for.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
um,
totally relate to how I feel about those green beans, that green bean recipe. It's like nobody can make that as well as, you know,
exactly. It's the
whoever.
yeah. Well, so it doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat, which is okay because when we post this, I'll go back and check in like a few days to see if there are any questions and then I'll just like answer them. But I just want to say thank you, Emily, for joining us today to talk all about food. And I really hope the people watching have like really learned a lot about just having like a healthier relationship with food and also just like tips on how to make such a food centered holiday not super food centered because it's possible to do so. So I just want to say thank you, Emily, once again for doing that. And before we leave, I do want to mention that we do offer the COVID-19 vaccine. So if you ever need to schedule a vaccine appointment with us at Whitman-Walker, you just have to call 202-207-2480. And we just hope everyone has a really good holiday if you celebrate Thanksgiving. And we'll see everyone later. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining.
For having this
Bye.
meeting.
Have a good day.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you too.
Bye.